welcome to another webisode of Talking Points. The GOP has seen some public criticism in the past few weeks, even from its own members. Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee sparked tensions between himself and the White House when audio of him saying that President Trump would lead to a third world war was leaked. Corker has not backed down and continues to criticize the president, saying to CNN that he would not support President Trump any longer. Corker was joined by Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, who blasted politics in America and reserved specific criticism for President Trump during his retirement address. Both senators are retiring, and the races to succeed them are contentious. The White House has not cooled tension, with President Trump attacking both senators on Twitter while claiming the GOP is as unified as ever. Here with me to break down the truth of that statement, as well as the situations in the Senate, are analysts Dan Prager, Jack Watson, and Sean Andersen. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Dan, is the GOP as unified as ever?
Absolutely not. I don't think they've ever been less unified. You see the president attacking moderates in the Senate. As Jeff Flake said he's not the only one in the Senate that feels this way. He's just the one who can talk about it because he's retiring. There's fighting between the president and his own staff. There's fighting between the president and Congress. There's fighting between congressmen. And you see all these people trying to get primaried. And I can't see any semblance of unity in the party right now.
Dan, the timing of this is really poor, too, because we have the 2018 Senate elections right around the corner, and we have some 2017 gubernatorial elections as well with Republican candidates. And this makes the entire party look not unified, as we're seeing with the bickering between Bob Corker and President Trump, between Jeff Flake and President Trump. It's really not a good sign for the Republican Party moving forward, especially with these elections.
I mean, going down the road now, when we look at the midterms, when we look at next year's budget and the plans for what they want to do legislative-wise, how badly is this going to hurt them? What are they going to be able to get done, and what sort of things are off the table now?
I do feel like definitely with the lack of unity, like Dan and Jack you described, in the lead up into the 2018 elections, it doesn't seem like they'll be able to get much done. When they don't have these candidates who are working on a solid platform that like every member of the Republican Party can agree on, what exactly are they running?
Yeah, what do Republicans want? I mean, the typical GOP values, you have lower taxes, lower the deficit, and you see this new tax plan that adds $1.5 trillion to the deficit, and the only real tax cuts are for the super wealthy, the only large ones at least. And you're seeing people like the Freedom Caucus go along with it, who have constantly turned down any deal that increased the deficit. It's kind of like they're selling their souls just for this popularity, just to appease President Trump and the Republican leadership.
Well, when you only have 52 senators in your majority, it's not very difficult to lose that majority when they're voting. Jack, what do you think they need to do to reunify here? I mean, is it up to President Trump to sort of step up and stop, tweeting out, these feuds, or is it on somebody else?
Well, the Republican Party certainly needs leadership, and I think that on the baseline, a majority of Republicans can agree, like Dan was saying, on lower taxes, a strong national defense. These things are core Republican values. And in order to get things done in the Senate, the Republicans need to return to these values and find common ground, and that starts with the president.
But can they? Can they return to those values after what's been going on now? I mean, you see Jeff Flake, he's retiring, but he was getting crushed in his Senate primary polls by a more Trump Republican. You're seeing all these moderates kind of getting booted out of the Senate in favor of these more nationalist, sort of Steve Bannon Republicans. Is there a way to return to that kind of national platform that they used to have under, say, Bush or supposedly McCain?
Well, I mean, I was going to say, speaking of Senator Bob Corker, if we go back to that, he told CNN that he won't support Donald Trump any longer. But like you said, Dan, when they had these national platforms, if there are certain things, like you said, Jack, with defense, if it's a typical Republican stance that both the president and the party support, is Bob Corker going to be able to see past that and vote with the party and President Trump, or is the grudge that heavy that he will vote against President Trump out of spite? I mean, Sean, what do you think?
I definitely feel that, given what he's said to the press and to others in the Republican Party, that he is taking a significant break from Trump. Early on, he was one of his biggest supporters, was even considered at one point to be a candidate for the Secretary of State. But now, like, it does seem that he's moving past Trump. He's had enough of the rhetoric that Trump's been using. I don't see him voting with the Republican Party or voting with Trump, at least, on these issues.
I do want to play some audio we have of Senator Jeff Flake. After his retirement address, he elaborated a little bit more on why he can't support the current GOP. Let's take a listen.
It's not enough to be conservative anymore. It seems that you have to be angry about it. And the politics of resentment have come into play. And I can't go there.
And what's your reaction?
You know, I agree with him. The politics of resentment kind of seems to be the GOP's national platform under Trump. You're seeing like the strong national defense, lower taxes kind of fall on the back burner behind the build the wall, these culture wars that have been really led by the Steve Bannon and the Mercers. I know we've been talking about this for weeks, and you've been saying that Steve Bannon is the most powerful man in American politics right now. And I mean, at this point, it kind of seems true. Bannon and Trump have the power that no one else has to kind of be the kingmaker in these elections and decide the national platform.
And you know, Dan, it's also really interesting that we're seeing the Republicans, the Steve Bannon, the Donald Trumps of American Republican politics, fleeing away from some of the core Republican values that we were talking about earlier. Free trade, for example. Free trade was, in the past, a major point of Republicanism, and now it's, as you said, being put on the back burner in favor of stronger restriction to trade, which is what President Trump and Steve Bannon support.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? I do want to go back to what Senator Flake said. Here's my question. Is he a coward, right? Or is what he's doing heroic? Because, let's be honest, he waited until he decided he was not running for re-election to make this stance. And the same goes for Corker. If Corker really believed that President Trump was leading us to World War III, you would think morally he should speak up before he decided that that was it, I'm not going to run for re-election. So the question becomes, you know, can you speak out against Donald Trump without, you know, fearing that you're going to lose? Can moderates win anymore? But, I mean... No, they simply, I don't think they can. If you look at the Senate races last year, only one Republican in Nevada spoke out and said, I will not be supporting Trump. And he lost. He was the only one of those toss-up races that lost. And these Republicans who are doing that, they're losing a large portion of their base. I mean, you just described the toxicity of politics in general. You can't really speak your mind for fear of losing support from your party, from your constituents. And I think it's unfair to call them cowards, unless you want to call all politicians cowards. Well, okay, but to be fair, right, the other politicians aren't taking this stand that they have to be morally obligated to do this. Jeff Flake is the one that's telling these other guys in the Senate, look, you got to step up and we got to be united against President Trump here. But, you know, he's coming from a place of privilege when he says that because he doesn't have to fear for re-election. But moving on, I just want to, you know, really quickly, and to be fair, Senator Flake, he started becoming unpopular back in 2013, yes. So we can't credit all of that downfall to President Trump. But moving forward, I mean, what exactly is going to be happening here? Is there a way out of this? And looking at 2018, these Senate vacancies between Corker and Flake, is that more primed for Steve Bannon to move in, or is that more primed for a Democrat to move in?
I would argue that it's more primed for a Democrat to move in, since the Republicans, as of now, still, even in the Senate, and in the House for that matter, are hanging on to a majority by a thread. And the fact that the Republican Party looks so bad and so not unified to the majority of Americans, I mean, I would not be surprised to see a shift in Congress from a Republican majority to a Democratic majority.
Sean, any final thoughts?
If I could offer another view on that, I feel that the Democratic Party is the one who really is lost in this next election. I feel like, contrary to what people thought going into this election, that Trump would be hurting the Republicans, I think they do have a stronger message. I feel even that they have more unity than the Democratic Party at this point, and more of a message.
Dan, you have one final thing to say?
I would say, I think really it depends on the area that we're in. I think the traditional Republican Party, and this is what I said when I saw Jeff Flake, and I may be being a little dramatic, is that the traditional moderate Republican Party is dead. I think in areas in blue states where you're going to see these more conservative Republicans come in, Democrats will win. In red states like Alabama with Roy Moore, you're going to see Trump conservatives win. And there's not really a place for the Jeff Flakes, the John McCains of the Republican Party to go right now. And I don't see that fixing anytime soon.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. So Dan, Jack, Sean, thanks so much for joining me. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Check out CitrusTV.com for more articles, clips, and episodes. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at CitrusTV News. And remember to tune in on Monday at 7:30 for a brand new episode of Talking Points. Have a good afternoon.